this garbage. And conservatives tonight, a huge win. The IRS now admitting that groups were in fact targeted by the Obama administration, Tea Party groups. Now tonight, these massive scandals can no longer be ignored. Tonight, we will demand answers from all of the people directly involved, and that means it's time for Hillary Clinton and, yes, President Obama to come clean about colluding with the Russians and explain why, in anybody's vast thinking they could ever give Vladimir Putin 20% of America's uranium supply. Also, Hillary Clinton, her top campaign officials, high-ranking DNC executives, all conveniently playing dumb when it comes to the phony, salacious dossier. We'll cover that in tonight's Breaking News opening monologue. All right, before we get into all of the new information, and there's a ton of it tonight, I want to remind you that for over a year, Democrats, members of the biased, abusively biased press, all breathlessly talking about Russia, Trump, collusion, hysteria breaking out almost every night. They were acting like the worst scandal in American history. Meanwhile, there were so many prominent Democrats and former Obama officials. In spite of all of it, they were saying there's smoke, but there's no fire. For a year, no evidence, but there's thousands of hours of television coverage. We knew by listening to people it was never true. Watch this.
Have you seen anything that suggests any collusion between the Russians and the Trump campaign?
Well, there's an awful lot of smoke there, let's put it that way. People that might have said they were involved, to what extent they were involved, to what extent the president might have known about these people or whatever. There's nothing there from that standpoint that we have seen directly linking our president to any of that.
The last time we spoke, Senator, I asked you if you had actually seen evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians, and you said to me, and I'm quoting you now, you said, not at this time. Has anything changed since we spoke last?
Well, no, it hasn't.
I know we need to go soon, but just to be clear, there has been no actual evidence yet.
No, it has not been.
Okay.
No, it has not been.
At the time I left, I did not see any smoking gun certitude evidence of collusion.
Is there any evidence of collusion that you have seen yet? Is there?
Listen, there is a lot of smoke. We have no smoking gun at this point.
See that? And despite the Destroy Trump media and their desperate attempt with no evidence, they did not stop breathlessly, hysterically reporting these lies, the so-called Trump-Russia collusion. Watch them.
We have a president's campaign under criminal investigation for dealing with a foreign adversary. Historian Douglas Brinkley says there's a smell of treason in the air.
You told the Washington Post last week that, quote, there's a smell of treason in the air when it comes to this investigation.
A lot of people are afraid to use the T word, treason, but in the end, that's what people are investigating.
The Republican Party is now actively shielding this treasonous megalomaniac.
He knows that he is smack in the middle of this investigation having to do with perhaps treasonous activities.
Now, tonight, one of the most important things, sadly, we conclude, is that the media and the Democrats in this country and their attacks were purely political. They never wanted the truth. Now, we even have real evidence that the FBI uncovered a Russian plot that involved, we have real evidence, bribery, extortion, blackmail, money laundering, racketeering. They knew in 2009, that was 1 year before Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration approved this corrupt Uranium One deal. And what we've learned this week is that the FBI, the Department of Justice, all knew in 2009 that this was happening inside our country. And they did nothing to stop it. So the same Democrats, the same media outlets that were screaming bloody murder for a year, lying to you every day for a year about Donald Trump, are giving next to zero coverage to this story. Now, keep in mind, we have an FBI informant in this case who infiltrated this Putin network right here in America. He has evidence. He has emails. He has personal recordings. He has documents. He has insider knowledge of all this, that America's national security was, in fact, compromised at the highest level. Our country was sold out right in front of our faces. They let it happen. Then, of course, you have the explosive new details about the phony, fake, salacious news dossier. Now, we now know that the Clinton campaign, the DNC, paid over $9 million to help fund these lies, this propaganda hit piece that the Russian government sources gave them. Now, make no mistake, this was nothing short of a collaborative effort with the Russians to manipulate the outcome of the last presidential election, and we have the proof. Also, we have to point something.
Washington House Republicans are now looking to the sale of a uranium mining company approved by the Obama administration. The sticking point here is the buyer of that uranium company, which turns out to be Russia's Atomic Energy Agency. President Trump was asked about the deal today.
Well, I think the uranium sale to Russia and the way it was done, so underhanded, with tremendous amounts of money being passed, I actually think that's Watergate modern age.
Well, it's a very complicated story, a lot of interconnected threads. Let's turn to CNN's Tom Foreman at the Magic Wall to explain. Tom?
Yeah, complicated is the word, Anderson. A key question for congressional investigators. Did Hillary Clinton give 20% of the United States supply of uranium to Russia for donations to the Clinton Foundation? And it flows out of the sale in 2010 of this company, Uranium One, which controlled about a fifth of America's uranium, to a Russian firm called Rosatom. By law, even though Uranium One was a Canadian firm, the U.S. part of this deal had to be approved by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S., which is comprised of 9 agencies, including the State Department. And at that time, Hillary Clinton was the boss there. Anderson?
So, I mean, a lot of this was looked at during the campaign. Why is it coming up back now again? I mean, there were also all the donations to the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. It was all talked about before. But the Hill newspaper, which reports on a lot of things with the government here, came out with a report showing the FBI was investigating a subsidiary of Rosatom for possible racketeering, money laundering, bribes, all aimed at giving the Russian government more influence over the U.S. nuclear industry while this deal was being approved. So some members of Congress want to know why they weren't told about all of this. And furthermore, the Hill says the Russians were channeling millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation at the same time, raising the question, especially for some Republicans, did Hillary Clinton help this deal along in any fashion? Her staff, people who work there, say emphatically no. She had nothing to do with approving the uranium deal. It was handled at the staff level, and Clinton herself calls the allegations baloney. Anderson?
So Clinton's denying it. Congressman Devin Nunes has launched an investigation. His committee wants to call a witness who allegedly saw much of this unfold.
Yeah, well, here's what we know about that guy. He's an informant who supposedly played a crucial role in that FBI investigation. His attorney tells us at CNN this man has a lot of information about corruption surrounding this matter, and he says the informant was stunned when the uranium deal was approved. If he testifies, of course, we'll get to hear it all firsthand and see how well his statements stand up to questioning. Anderson?
Right. Tom Foreman, thanks. Back with the panel. Mike, is this Watergate modern age?
Well, I think we should find out. And I think of all the things that we've talked about, this has more teeth and more legs than, and that was a great explanation by CNN there of what this is. When I worked in Congress in 2006, CFIUS is the acronym that he mentioned. CFIUS will be something that people that follow this, you'll start to say this word on here all the time. It's a committee that oversees foreign investments in America, and they denied the country of Dubai from buying some U.S. ports. It's a long, laborious thing. We really investigate whether or not a foreign entity, for a very good reason, can buy into America. This one was expedited. It went through the Obama administration in 90 days. The Republican, with Democrats in Congress with no oversight hearings at all. And the Republicans in Congress at the time said, wait a minute, what's going on here? Many Americans might be learning tonight and not realize that 20% of U.S. uranium is now owned by Russia. That all happened under the Obama administration with Hillary Clinton as the Secretary of State, while
it was approved by multiple government agencies.
All under the Obama administration.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like a committee of people of the cabinet of Barack Obama, right, with her sitting there as Secretary of State. It's well worth looking into this and finding out what the truth is.
This is all old news. I mean, I actually wrote about this story and how it came to be in my book published 3-4 months ago. I mean, all of this stuff came out years ago. There was a front page story in the New York Times. And the element that's about this that hasn't really got any attention that I think is important is this story was generated by Steve Bannon, working under the auspices of the Mercer family, the right-wing billionaires, who produced the book Clinton Cash, which in turn, before it was published, was given to New York Times reporters who took this, realized there really is a story here, and it generated a front-page story in the New York Times above the fold just after Clinton announced her candidacy. The purpose of the story, as Bannon tells me in the book, was to impugn Clinton's character, which it did. And what's interesting is it's coming up now at the very point at which Russia has become a problem for Donald Trump, And by congressional Republicans surfacing this now, I think it muddies the water and draws attention away from Trump.
Yeah, the new company that bought this uranium has no license to export.
Right, the uranium's not in Russia.
Uranium's not going to Russia. It can't go to Russia. They have no license to export. That's point one. Point two, those are 9 cabinet and some sub-cabinet agencies that sit on there, including the Justice Department, of which the FBI is part. So if the FBI had concerns, they should have raised it at that level because they had a seat at the table. The Treasury Department chairs that process, by the way, not state or justice. And finally, Hillary didn't even vote on it. She didn't even attend the meetings on it. She delegated it sensibly to somebody who knows more about this stuff, a guy named Jose Fernandez, who's the assistant secretary, who said, and I'm quoting him, he said, Hillary Clinton never intervened with me on any CFIUS matter. So no intervention. She didn't even vote on it. The Justice Department had a seat at the table, and they can't take. But here's
but hang on. This is a point you'll want me to make. Okay. The thing that Clinton did wrong was she didn't disclose the donors. The head of this company was donating money to the Clinton Foundation. Bill Clinton was getting money from a Russia-aligned investment bank.
I think like $145 million total, which is
a significant amount. Hang on. I interviewed the CEO. There was a deal the Clinton Foundation was supposed to disclose foreign donors, and in this case, they did not. Which is what made it a viable story. What it doesn't show is that there was any kind of collusion with Russia.
People ought to look at PolitiFact, which has done a real good explainer of this. One of the things they point out is the guy that made those donations, he made them 18 months before Hillary was even Secretary of State, and 3 years before this deal.
But they knew she was running. They knew she was running for president. And at the end of the day, it's two things. The two things are the problem. It's crooked Hillary.
Look it up online.
It's crooked Hillary. The money moving all around to her people. And the second thing is, no, she's out of office, thankfully. And the second thing that's true is the FBI, the story that Hill wrote, they're not carrying water. They're not carrying water for the Trump campaign. Hill said, wait a second, the FBI was in this in a way that nobody ever knew, and it wasn't disclosed. What's the story? And that's what we have to get.
So did Hillary shut up the FBI?
Well, I don't know. We'll find out.
Oh, sure, because State Department runs FBI.
Well, Paul, should we look into it?
Shouldn't we look into it? Isn't that what you've all said, that we should look into whether the president has done anything to influence the FBI? You've been calling that.
If this is an attempt at all for Russia interference, wouldn't this be one of the things that...
I think you look into it until the cows come home, but it's been looked into.
But you just hit it. The other thing that I think is important to remember is that this happened at a time when it was they were trying to do the Russia reset. So this was also part of... We're thinking of it in today's world, right, where we're looking at Russia as someone who tried to interfere with our election, who has basically become a major, enemy of the United States, and at that point they were trying to have a relationship with them, and so that would be an argument for why they might approve a deal like this. I don't think there's anything wrong with investigating it. I just think that, like you're pointing out, the person who supposedly was doing this payoff, he also sold his stake in the company before Hillary even...
Josh, you know we got to go.
I spoke to the CEO who said he was a huge Clinton fan. He gave a lot of money, to the Clinton Foundation, considered Bill Clinton one of his pals. I think that was the word he used. So he clearly had an interest in ingratiating himself to the Clintons. What I don't think it showed, though, is that there was any kind of Russian collusion.
We got to take a break here. Appreciate everybody on the panel. Thank you. More ahead. We'll be right back.